Q&A today?
Yeah. Okay. Hey, welcome back. This is the Business of Music podcast. My name is Elliot. That's James. Back to doing the introduction the same way we always used to, but hey, who cares? This podcast is really for all of you. One thing I think is very interesting is, I think a lot of people want or are afraid to do things like a podcast or to go live on their Instagram or to do a thing on Facebook where I get my fans in here. I'm going to do some Q&A. And they're afraid that when 9 people show up, it looks bad, right? You got to start somewhere. And if you're always afraid of, 10,000 people aren't going to show up to my live, it's not worth doing. No one's ever going to show up if you don't start. And what James and I do for this podcast, our most streamed podcast might have like 500 or 600 streams, right? So we're not doing this podcast to get 50,000 people checking us out. But I bet 80 to 90% of the people who checked out a podcast are people who either are customers or who are thinking about becoming a customer. So think about it that way. We don't need 50,000 people checking out our podcast because we can't handle 50,000 customers. We want, 50 to 100 good ones. Our podcast is effective for us because, maybe 500 people check out the podcast. But we also get an hour worth of video content for it that we can, now on YouTube, we've got an hour-long podcast. Check out the whole thing if you want. But what we also do is now we take that 1 hour of content and you cut it up. You take one segment. Here's a 3-minute segment talking about marketing. Here's a 5-minute segment talking about what music distribution is. Here's a 10-minute good conversation to going back and forth about God knows what. So the thing is this is a total tangent, but it's a good point. And I think people get afraid of whether they're starting a business or a music business, whatever it is they're doing, they're afraid of, well, I don't want to go live with so-and-so and do this thing. Only 10 or 15 people are going to show up. You're not going to get to the status of having 10,000 people check out your Instagram live if you can't first get 100 in there. And if you're a business, if you're an engineer, right, or a producer, you don't need 50,000 people on your Instagram live to check it out. You're only looking to get 3 clients right at the beginning. So 15 people check it out and they're kind of, hey, I'm looking for beats. I'm in the market. Like, you don't need 50,000 people checking out your IG live. You got to start somewhere. We don't even need 1,000 people checking out our podcast for it to be, we don't just do this because like I enjoy doing it, but like it's effective for what we're doing. We get a lot of content. And
I think there's also the benefit of getting comfortable in front of people.
Definitely.
You like to talk. You don't have a problem with it. But there's a lot of people out there that won't do a live or anything or record themselves because they don't want to hear their own voice. But then you have to go perform. Maybe you are more comfortable performing. It's different, but you have to be comfortable everywhere. I just watched that Tiger Woods documentary. His dad used to teach him how to talk to people when it came to the media, because you're not just going to be performing in life. You have to talk to your fans. If you're not comfortable talking to people online who you don't even see and just kind of talking to yourself, you have to become comfortable. And I think live and podcasts and YouTube's a good way to do that. Way back in the day when I was still a power lifter, I was doing vlogs, and that's how I got comfortable, just staring at a camera, talking to myself. I was literally just like, here's my lifts. Look at me. Maybe I would be YouTube famous. Never panned out. So but it made me very, very comfortable, like to do this, or like last year when we went to the Grammys and like talk to people. It's whatever. One day, I'm sure Elliot will be doing a TED Talk someplace and he'll be fine because of stuff like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the thing is when you're doing something, like when you're doing an IG live, or when you're doing a podcast, or when you're doing whatever it is you're doing, people go into it like, I'm not worried about me stumbling over my words or like saying a fact that I then learn I was wrong about, because I'll just go back the next step. I've done that before. I did that with like Eddie Van Halen. I said, it's this song, and it was not that song. People don't really care in the moment. Like people get so caught up in, all my delivery needs to be on point. I can't stumble over my words. I got to do this. I got to do that. And it becomes so overwhelming that it's like, you just got to like sit down, be who you are, and have something to say. And if you're good at what you're trying to sell, whether it's your music or your service or whatever it is you're doing, people who are interested might hit you up and ask you further questions about it. So that's kind of a good lead in to like, you don't need 5,000 people to check out your YouTube channel or your podcast or your Instagram Live for them to be effective. Because especially now, because you can record the content and use the content over and over again. If we really like this conversation we're having right now, you might see this on Instagram 10 months from now in some little frame and a cool thing. Like, remember when we talked about this? Like, you can use the content again and again, and you don't need a huge audience for them to be effective at the beginning. We used to do sales, once a week. We'd go on IG Live and we'd have, I think our biggest one, we had 500 or 600 people kind of in and out of our Instagram Live and on Facebook. And that was cool. But like, we would have a thing where we would tell our clients, hey, don't buy, wait until Wednesday. We're going to have a sale. Like, just join the show and you'll get some sort of discount. And we'd do like, 15 or so orders in a night. And like, we didn't need, that's a big night for us. Like, we don't need 10,000 people in there to have a success. If we have 100 people stay tuned through the whole thing and a couple hundred more kind of tune in and out and 15 of them end up buying, that's a big night for us. That's a good start. You don't need 5,000 people in your IG Live for it to be effective. And you'll never, ever get to that level